The mystery of consciousness. Is your mind more than biology? Right now, you are aware that you're reading these words. You know you exist. You can feel the weight of your body, the hum of your thoughts, the strange sense that somewhere behind your eyes, there is a you. But here's the question that has haunted scientists, philosophers, and neuroscientists for centuries. Why? Why does biological matter, neurons, synapses, electrical signals, give rise to the feeling of being alive? Why doesn't your brain just process information silently, in the dark, with no inner experience at all? This is what philosopher David Chalmers called the hard problem of consciousness. And to this day, no one has solved it. Let's start with what we do know. Your brain contains roughly 86 billion neurons. Each one fires electrical signals thousands of times per second. These signals travel through trillions of synaptic connections, forming patterns of extraordinary complexity. Neuroscientists can observe this activity in real time. They can watch, on an fMRI scan, which regions of your brain light up when you feel fear or joy or the memory of someone you love. They can even predict, with some accuracy, what you are about to decide before you consciously know it yourself. In a landmark study by Benjamin Libet in the 1980s, researchers discovered that brain activity associated with a voluntary movement began nearly half a second before the person reported being aware of their intention to move. Half a second. Before you decide, your brain has already started. So what does that mean for free will? What does that mean for you? Here is where the mystery deepens. We can map the brain, we can trace every synapse, every chemical reaction, every oscillating wave of neural activity. And yet, no matter how detailed our map becomes, we still cannot explain why any of it feels like something. Why does red look red? Why does music move you to tears? Why does the smell of rain on dry earth take you back to a moment from childhood? These are what philosophers call qualia, the raw, subjective textures of experience, and they remain completely outside the reach of purely physical explanation. Francis Crick, co-discoverer of DNA and later a neuroscientist, spent the last years of his life searching for what he called the neural correlates of consciousness. He believed that somewhere in the brain, possibly in a region called the claustrum, there was a master coordinator, a conductor bringing all your sensory experiences into one unified moment of awareness. He died in 2004 without finding it. But science hasn't given up. In fact, the field is exploding. One of the most influential modern theories is called integrated information theory, developed by neuroscientist Giulio Tononi. His theory proposes that consciousness is not a thing located in a specific part of the brain. Instead, it is a property, like temperature or mass, that emerges whenever information is integrated in a sufficiently complex and unified way. Tononi even developed a mathematical formula for consciousness. He calls it phi. The higher the phi, the richer the conscious experience. This theory has radical implications. It suggests that consciousness might not be exclusive to humans. It might exist in varying degrees in animals, in insects, perhaps even in certain complex machines. But it also raises an unsettling question. If consciousness is purely a matter of information integration, Could a sufficiently advanced artificial intelligence become conscious? Could something we build wake up? There is another theory, stranger still. Physicist Roger Penrose and anesthesiologist Stuart Hameroff proposed that consciousness arises not from classical neural computation, but from quantum processes occurring inside tiny structures within neurons called microtubules. Their theory, orchestrated objective reduction, or OR, suggests that quantum superposition inside these microtubules allows the brain to process information in ways that go far beyond ordinary computing, and that the collapse of these quantum states is what produces each moment of conscious experience. Most neuroscientists remain skeptical. The brain, they argue, is too warm and too wet for delicate quantum effects to survive. Quantum coherence, they say, would be destroyed almost instantly by biological noise. But Penrose and Hameroff are not finished. Recent experiments have shown that quantum effects do appear to play a role in photosynthesis, in bird navigation, and in the human sense of smell. Biology, it turns out, has found ways to exploit quantum physics that we never expected. Maybe the brain has too. Now let's go somewhere even more uncomfortable. What if consciousness is not produced by the brain at all? What if the brain is not the source of your experience, but a receiver? This is not fringe thinking. Some of the most respected scientists in the world have seriously entertained this possibility. Neuropsychiatrist Peter Fenwick, after studying thousands of near-death experiences, concluded that the evidence suggests consciousness can operate independently of brain function. Patients who were clinically dead, with no measurable brain activity, returned with vivid, verifiable, and sometimes shared experiences. In one famous case, documented in a Dutch study published in The Lancet, one of the world's most prestigious medical journals, a patient during cardiac arrest had an out-of-body experience and later accurately described the resuscitation room, the nurses, and even the specific drawer where a nurse had placed his dentures. His brain at that moment was not functioning. How do you explain that with neurons? Philosopher Thomas Nagel, in his famous essay, What Is It Like to Be a Bat?, argued that subjective experience cannot be reduced to objective physical description. There is something it is like to be you, and no amount of brain scans will ever capture that something. He concluded that our current scientific framework is fundamentally incomplete, not because science is wrong, but because science, as we practice it, was designed to study the objective world, and consciousness is irreducibly subjective. To understand the mind, he argued, we may need an entirely new kind of science. So, where does this leave us? We are conscious beings trying to understand consciousness. We are the mystery trying to solve itself. What we know, the brain generates, or at least correlates with, conscious experience in ways we can observe and measure. What we don't know, why physical processes give rise to inner experience at all. Whether consciousness is fundamental to the universe, like space and time, whether it can exist without a body, whether it survives death. These are not questions on the fringe. They are questions that the most brilliant minds on Earth are actively working on right now. And the answers, when they come, will not just change science. They will change everything you think you know about yourself. Because here is the deepest truth of all. You're not just a body that happens to think. You're a point of awareness in an indifferent universe, asking why it exists. And the fact that you can ask that question is perhaps the most extraordinary thing in all of nature.